Mr. Prime Minister, you are now facing less than 2 weeks the report from Melis, the UN investigator.
Yes.
How important is this report for Lebanon's future?
Well, it is very important as far as, first of all, knowing exactly who plotted and who really played a role and who executed the decision of assassinating Hariri. That's very important to know the truth. But there is something else which is important as well, is that this country has suffered over the past 30 years a number of assassinations, political assassinations, against politicians, against people of high standing in the field of culture. And, they go unpunished. And I think it's high time to give a lesson for everybody who may think at any point in time of doing a similar, let's say, a plot or assassination. I think it is important to get to know who did that for the sake of Hariri and Flayhan and the rest, and for the other crimes who are in one way or another related to this crime, and for anything in the future.
You, of course, have been planning for different outcomes of the reports. If there is a finger pointing on the family of President Bashar al-Assad, what will you do?
Well, I don't want to rush into making conclusions at this point in time. I think it is preferably not to really get into skeptical. What I can really say at this point in time, I have met with Mr. Melis 4 times, and each time I used to tell him one simple statement: don't tell me anything which you may think that it will jeopardize the investigation. I actually don't know anything about the contents of the report, and I don't think that anybody knows anything about the contents of the report. Mind you that Mr. Melis has started writing this report only 2 days ago. So in fact, nobody knows. And I don't like to read, as in my nature personally, and in my capacity, I don't like to run into conclusions now or assumptions. Internally, one has to really reflect on various scenarios. But this is something that, what you call it, in the drawing room, something that one has to really reflect on it, but not to speak about it.
But you can give us a kind of an assumption of scenarios without going into details. What is the best case scenario here?
Let me tell you something in here, what I can really think, is that irrespective of who might be in one way or another, had an involvement or implicated, let's say, any person from Syria who might be implicated, I want to run to the conclusion by saying this should not in any manner affect the relationship between Lebanon and Syria. I think this is a sacred relationship. We have to be very careful about maintaining a very good relations between the two peoples, the Lebanese and the Syrians. The things in common between the two countries is so huge. It is history, geography, and the future. We have to be very careful in maintaining excellent relationship, but I wish to say that this relationship has to be based on mutual respect between the two countries and on equivalence, so that the people, the Syria, they have to get used to the fact that Lebanon is no longer, let's say, under the control of Syria. I think since the beginning of the establishment of Lebanon, there was a formula or a certain statement that was set by the martyr Riyad al-Sulh, who was the first prime minister in Lebanon. He said that Lebanon should not be in any manner a place that is antagonistic to Syria, or a place from which any harm can affect Syria. At the same time, later on, after something like 50 years, Hariri said a very important statement: Lebanon cannot be ruled against Syria, and Lebanon cannot be ruled by Syria. So, in fact, our relationship has to really stay a very good relationship because of all sorts of common things together. Hence, in case anybody might be implicated, any Syrian might be implicated, which I don't know, which I have no reason now to accuse anybody, I will tell that we have to be careful in maintaining a very good relationship between the two countries.
There have been attempts of murder other people in Lebanon lately.
Yes.
And you ask for the help from the FBI in the States.
Yes.
Well, some people in your own government, other parties, says you shouldn't go to the States, you should ask maybe countries like Sweden or Norway. Can you elaborate a little bit here?
Well, let me tell you something. In this regard, I am very keen on knowing what happened and how it happened, and finally who did it. I am keen on friendly countries. If it comes from Sweden, it's most welcome. From Norway, it is most welcome. If it comes from an Arab country, again the same thing. What happened is that immediately after the attempt was made, and I went immediately to the hospital, and within a very angry crowd, and everybody was really looking to know what really happened, and I, in my capacity, I have to really get to know what really happened. So I got a telephone call from the American ambassador stating that they have readily available people who can really help us in doing that. Mind you, this is the third time that, including this time, that we seek the help of the American experts, in this regard the FBI. So it was not the first time that in Lebanon for similar assassinations that were made. So I did it. And I think the matter was later on discussed at the Council of Ministers. It was very clear about it with all my ministers. And finally, the Council of Ministers supported my point of view, is that there is no harm in doing that. We are not really restricting ourselves to get the support from the United States. We are saying that anybody who can really help us, not only in matters that has to do with, let's say, investigating this plot or this explosion. What we are really after is to get the support from friendly countries and brotherly countries regarding refurbishing and retraining our people at the internal security. And prison is entirely different than fighting an ordinary crime. We have to learn the new techniques and the ways how they really investigate, how they coordinate, how to really analyze the information, and all sorts of things that would require a different approach and different capabilities which we don't have. And that's why we have been seeking the help of a number of countries. And I can really count up till now 14 countries that I have approached in order to get their help, whether they are Arab countries or West Europe, or even Russia, even the United States and others, that I sought their help in order to really give us the necessary support.
As the Prime Minister in Lebanon, do you see a really change? Do you think you are able to face a really change now after Syria is out, or is it the same old Lebanon we are facing?
Well, let me tell you something. Have you ever tried to get up very early in the morning and to see the sun rise? And you'll find out that the sun rises gradually. Lebanon is changing. And definitely we've got to get used to the fact that it's changing. After 30 years of various types of, let's say, civil war, invasions by Israel, occupation by Israel, and all sorts of problems and destruction and loss of lives and so on. And later on, the increased involvement by the Syrians in everyday life, everyday matters in the daily life of the Lebanese that really messed things. And later on, that resulted in the imposed extension of the term of the president. And finally, that culminated in the assassination of Rafiq Hariri and the people that were with him, including Basil Flayhan. I mean, everything that led later on to the 14th of March demonstration, which is equivalent, what is the total population of Norway? 4.5 million, which is equivalent to about 1.7 million Norwegians demonstrating in the streets of Oslo. Try to imagine that, what it really means. I think that really, that's very important. That the Lebanese, they demonstrated, they wanted to have to assure themselves and the world that they want a liberal, free Lebanon. They want to make sure that Lebanon will get back to the principles that it was really established to respect these principles. Human rights, being an open country, moderate tolerance. I mean, that we can achieve things through peaceful means. These are the things that the youth demonstrated and really expressed their point of view. They wanted to really make sure that Lebanon, as a sovereign state, will really be assured once more. So this is the thing that is changing in Lebanon. And I think that democracy has been proven that in Lebanon, which has deep roots in it, that the Lebanese can really develop this Lebanese model, not only as something good, but as a model even in the Arab world. So I think in this respect, I am positive that Lebanon is changing and that we are entering a new era in Lebanon, and that the Lebanese would have to, again, get used, some of them who were not used to this era, they have to get used to this era. And there is something that we have to really sweat for. That the coming periods, I think the Lebanese are going to really feel it for the first time, that they have really their Lebanon is back to them, and their decision lies in fact with them. I felt it when I was really forming my cabinet. I really had the finance with the late Prime Minister, God bless his soul, Mr. Hariri. I was with him in all the 5 cabinets he formed, and I was carrying that portfolio. Most of the time, in fact, most of the names and the portfolios in the cabinets were determined beforehand, and he had to really fill in some blanks. I was one of the people who was filled by him, you see. But the others, in fact, were already determined by others. This time, this cabinet was formed in Lebanon, 100% formed in Lebanon, after lots of dialogue and discussion among the various parliamentary groups. I think we formed the government. That was the first time that I personally experienced during the period from 92 till 2004. Did not have the opportunity of being able to form its cabinets on the basis of Lebanese decisions. So this is something that we are experiencing now, experiencing the change, getting used to the change. But this is something that we will move with great determination, with clear. Might be some bumps on the way. Well, that's very normal. But the clear determination that I am feeling it myself nowadays and getting the response of the people, I am quite positive that we are on the right track and Lebanon will get back its decision in its own hands.
But you also must be worried about foreign powers using people in Lebanon, as we have seen in history. Different countries has used different groups to fight.
Well, this is يعني, what you call it. There is nothing anymore in the world which is 100% independence and 100% sovereignty. This is something relative, rather. I think as we recognize this fact, one has to confess again that the Lebanese, they have learned very hard lessons. And I think it is very difficult for them to get into new adventures that would lead them to situations which they really suffered from for the past 30 years.
So you don't expect a civil war in Lebanon anymore?
At all. No, I don't believe that it is possible anymore.
What about the Palestinian cards that it's obvious somebody is talking about?
Well, the Palestinians, as you know, we have a Palestinian presence. And in this respect, one has to remember why the Palestinians are in here. Because they were driven out of their homes by the Israelis. And in fact, 55 years. And this is something that should have been handled and really resolved. And let me, even if I'm really going into a side topic, I want to really say that the Palestinian problem is by definition the mother of all problems in the region. And it is the mother of all solutions in the region. And the Palestinian problem runs deep in the conscience of all Arabs and all Muslims in the world. Let me even, at the expense of saying that I am exaggerating, I would say that if we manage to resolve the Palestinian problem, you will feel it elsewhere and everywhere in the world. If you go to Indonesia, you will feel the impact of the solution of the Palestinian problem there. Because this problem, as I said, runs deep in the conscience of all Muslims in the world. I think it is so important that the Arabs, they came up with the proposal, the Arab Peace Initiative. And if any solution is really arrived into that, I think it is good for everybody, including the Israelis. I have learned it the hard way, is that the security of any country is not measured in terms of how much arms and ammunitions and deterrent forces that you may have. It is in your ability to have good relations with your neighbors. This is the long-term security for any country. And this is the thing that the Israelis would have to learn. I believe that the Arabs, they have really went far and so important in coming up with the Arab Peace Initiative. And this is something that one has to remember in order to really come to a real solution. Now, coming to the Palestinians in Lebanon, I think they are really living in a very difficult situation. And we have to deal with this situation because they are living in the camps. They are still living in the camps. And we in Lebanon, we have had a real consensus among all the Lebanese because of national and Lebanese reasons. We cannot naturalize the Palestinians because this will affect a great deal our national interests and our equilibrium in Lebanon. So Lebanon cannot really afford to naturalize the Palestinians. And the Palestinians, they have to get back to where they belong, to Palestine. Now they are here. And there is definitely, in the camps, they have arms, which is definitely not in the quantity and the quality that some people may think. But they have really suffered a great deal. And in the back of their minds, the massacre of Sabra and Shatila is still very, very vivid, in which the Israelis, they went into the camps of Sabra and Shatila, and they had hundreds of people massacred there. So they are really want to make sure that they are really protected. Definitely we all believe that in any country the security is a monopoly of the state, which we all respect. But this matter has to be dealt with great caution, through dialogue, through continuous contact with the Palestinians, so that we can achieve a real solution into this matter.
Last question, I'll go back to the beginning about the Melis report. If you think it's important to have an extension if he is not happy with the result now?
Well, let me tell you something in this regard. The resolution that was made by the Security Council, 1595, states that the mandate for the special investigation, the International Investigation Commission, is in fact for 3 months, extendable for an additional 3 months. Now, Mr. Melis said he is going to resubmit his report by the 21st of October this month, which is something very good. But the mandate extends effectively until the 15th of December. The idea is that the mandate will continue. Melis will submit his report on time, on the 21st of October. The remaining period, there are lots of things to be done. And this will give Lebanon as well additional time to think, to reflect on the findings, on the contents of the report, what's to be done next, so that we can really handle the matter. I believe that Mr. Melis is moving in the direction of staying under the mandate that comes to an end by the 15th of December. And that's good for him, for Lebanon, and for all concerned.